About 20 years ago, I herniated several discs in my upper spine, quite serious. And, I was sort of immobilized in a drug induced, antidepressant induced stupor on the couch. And I didn't know what to do because it wasn't getting better. And so that's kind of what transformed my life because Western medicine, my education, really didn't have anything to offer me.
Hello and welcome back to all my Courage, Confidence, and Connections podcast listeners. You know, we're having a wonderful guest today. We're going to have some fun. We haven't caught up in a while, so you get to hear the back door conversation sitting on the porch today. and Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you, Janice.
This is Cindy Miracle to my audience, and you're going to learn all about. Well, I don't know about all about her in a half hour, but we'll do what we can. Appreciate you coming on board here, and we're going to get right to it. So, what I love to do, Cindy, is just kind of chat about, you'll get to tell all about where you are now and what you're doing, but I'd love to get your backstory. And that I know you've got one because I've heard some of it. You've had some traumatic stuff in your life, and I want to tell our audience your backstory, and you can start wherever you want, and then we'll just go forward from there.
Well, that's interesting because it sort of segues right into one of my life transformative stories, which is literally a back story. And it starts with spinal injuries.
Mm.
And so I'm a medical technologist by education. I have a bachelor's degree in clinical laboratory science. I love science. And about 20 years ago, I herniated several discs in my upper spine, quite serious. And, I was sort of immobilized in a drug induced, antidepressant induced stupor on the couch. And I didn't know what to do because it wasn't getting better. And so that's kind of what transformed my life because Western medicine, my education, really didn't have anything to offer me that was acceptable. Surgery, fusing my spine, that beautiful design of our spine, once you fuse it, it changes the mechanics. And I was a little kind of resistant to doing that at my age at that time. And then medication, you know, and
Yeah.
steroids, all of that. It just didn't look good. And so I was kind of opening up my mind to what do I do now? And that's when I re-encountered what has become my passion for 20 years, which is therapeutic essential oils. And I just kind of dismissed them,
Mhm.
but I couldn't dismiss them anymore. I
Yeah.
was open to whatever could possibly help me feel better, and that's what kind of got me to where I am today.
Mm. Well, was there an accident or did something just give way? Was there any traumatic event that put you in that situation, Cindy?
Good question. Yeah, our family, we live on a ranch in Central Oregon, and we had horses,
Oh.
and our kids and my husband and I, we were out on horses. I was afraid of horses,
Oh.
and I got thrown off many, many times,
Mm.
and that's kind of the what happened. It was very traumatic, getting thrown off these big animals over and over again, and blew out my spine. So
Oh. Oh. Well, I count myself very fortunate because I've had one of those big throws. Only had one big one, but I didn't break anything. I didn't crack anything. And I'm very thankful. Found out later I have my bones are 20 to 30 years younger than I am.
oh, good for you. That's good news.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is, and that explained not busting a hip wide open because when they're big animals and when they
They're big.
decide, yeah, mine did a high O silver on me.
Hmm. Yeah, we had several horses through those years, and they were not really well trained, and I was not really confident, and so that's a bad combination. Anyway, it actually became a blessing in disguise, so to speak,
Mhm.
because it opened me up to energetic healing. And yeah, so.
Yeah, that's fantastic. How
Mhm.
long did it take for you? How long did you lay on the couch in that drug-induced coma and before you re-explored the oils, and was it a long transition or did you just wake up one day and said, I got to do something different?
Well, I had interviewed and consulted with neurosurgeons,
Hmm.
and Central Oregon is a mecca of brilliant people, actually, including Western medical specialists. And uh, so, I finally went to the doctor when it wasn't getting better, and my arm muscles that are innervated by those upper, you know, cervical nerve endings, like I was starting to drop things. So how long? Probably 3 months, 3 or 4 months. And I explored what my options were medically. And then I decided, no, I'm not going to go either route, surgery or medication. So what that left me with just kind of possibility of openness, and I began to explore natural wellness. And I met my mentor, probably 2 or 3 months into that journey, and it changed everything. She gave me a session called the raindrop technique,
Oh, yeah.
and I got off the massage table, and I felt so much better, not healed, but significantly better. The pain was near gone. So, what's really cool about that is for 20 years, I haven't taken any medication since that time. Like, literally. And, well, literally, maybe 2 Tylenol in 20 years, something like that. Um, but nothing for back pain. I just find that really phenomenal, and it really gives me a passion to empower others through education. So,
Oh, absolutely. Now, in making that transition, can you tell our audience a little bit about what that process looked like for you? You had this treatment, and then so from there, how did you go about exploring this option, and how long did it take you to kind of ramp up to where you knew that this was the answer?
well, I got off the massage table. It's an hour long session, and I was sort of like, yeah, whatever. Okay, I'll give it a try. And
Mhm.
I was profoundly amazed, I guess is the answer. And I thought, this is something. I thought essential oils were expensive potpourri, just foo-foo.
Yeah.
And and I learned and experienced something that was transformative. And so even in that 1 hour, I decided that there's something here and I need to know more. I'm a lifelong learner, and so I began to study, and I studied with the thought leaders in this industry of natural wellness. And
Hmm.
so I would say I spent 2 or 3 years becoming certified in lots of different areas, and now I teach and educate. So,
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that's quite a story because a lot of people deal with back injuries and they deal with other injuries through surgery. And once you start, I remember my brother telling me from his experience, he said once he started, he couldn't stop. And now I don't know how many he's had from his on his back and neck and knees. He said,
mhm.
don't start because once you do, it's a cycle that just doesn't end. And I can see that from his own life. It's been horrible for him because that can lead to other problems, such
Mhm.
as addiction of some of these
Mhm.
painkillers and drugs to alleviate the discomfort.
You're absolutely right, Janice, and people don't really know that. We've been programmed until the last few years when a lot of people are disappointed in these band aid so called solutions,
Yeah.
and they're starting to explore other options, getting kind of a renaissance back to natural technologies. However, the thing is, there's no regulation still, very little regulation in the industry of natural wellness and essential oils. And so you really need to do your research. And I felt really blessed that the person that landed in my life we kind of know it's not accidental. And she was at the top of the industry in, essential oils. And she was an educator and connected me with thought leaders in the industry. And so it's been a huge opportunity for me to take this knowledge and disseminate it to the people in my networks. So it's
Hmm.
been really good.
Yeah, that is great. So as you're
Mhm.
making this transition, what type of oils really started to make an impact for you? Which ones?
Well, that's a big question. You
Okay.
know, there's there's authentic essential oils and then there's manipulated essential oils. So I'll answer that question in a couple ways.
Okay.
Um, we know that you can create synthetic products that are almost non-discernible, indiscernible from natural through technologies, um, mass spec, and just different laboratory technologies. And so, however, the energy of nature, untampered with, is really where the power is. And so, fortunately, I was introduced to essential oils that were produced by the farmer in the industry, you might say. So, in the marketplace, there's a lot of brokers, there's a few farmers. And that's true in a lot of different industries. And so, the company that I work with is the farmer in the industry, if you will. And so I can tell you some of the oils. There some blends and some single oils. Wintergreen is a wonderful oil. Um, it is kind of like nature's aspirin, if you will.
Okay.
Valor is a blend that is part of this technique called the raindrop technique. And Valor is very balancing with the sympathetic parasympathetic nervous system. So that's really powerful. And cypress is an oil that supports circulation. Oregano. There's just a lot of different oils. So it's a several hour workshop to learn this technique. But just to give you a broad brushstroke,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of oils right on the spinal reflex points on the bottoms of the feet. And then the second half of the technique is directly on the spine in a very light feathering touch. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Do you do those types of treatments for other people?
I'm an educator, and yes, I, of course, am certified to do it for others. But what I really love to do, Janice, is empower people. I love to connect um, chiropractors or massage therapists or couples. I recently trained a couple, and they can now do raindrop technique on each other in the privacy of their home and really supporting their own wellness that way.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Yeah, you can't do it to yourself. So it's a
Well, actually, you can. It's just
really.
trickier and it has to be modified. But it's so much better when someone is, administering to you. There's a lot of things that we can do for ourselves, though, with essential oils. And the most profound way to use the oils I have found is through inhalation,
Oh,
deep inhalation. So, in synergy with breath work, you know a lot about breath work
oh yeah.
and yoga and that kind of work. When you add authentic essential oils that are energetically integrous, meaning they haven't been messed with or manipulated. They're the immune system of the plants and they have that high energy. And then when you inhale them, they do a huge, just a wonderful work to create a state change through your limbic system, the part of your brain that is directly wired to the sense of smell, your sense of your memory, and your emotions. All that happens in the limbic lobe of the brain.
Yeah, and I think what you pointed out about because there's so many options for oils and the synthetic ones, a lot of people they have no idea that the difference. Can you educate us a little bit deeper on that synthetic versus the authentic? Because people can get fooled because this is one price, that's another, and they make a decision based on the price, and then it doesn't work. So yeah, give us a mini lesson there.
All right, I'm happy to do that. So, first we need to talk about purity. That means nothing's been added, so it's pure. But then let's talk about potency. Potency is important from the growing perspective and the harvest perspective. So, the soil matters, the type of seed matters, the genus and species matter. All these nuances make a difference in the potency of the oil. And then how it's actually distilled or sometimes cold pressed
Mhm.
in the case of citrus oils, but you know the temperature, even the angle of the pipe, the timing, all of those things matter when you harvest the plants. All of those things matter for the potency, but then there's one more thing, and that is energetic integrity. And that's when you honor the people that are touching these plants and handling the oils and involved in the distillation and the bottling and the testing. Their energy is actually transmuted into the plant, into the oil, and it matters.
Yeah.
And we know that. I mean, you know that. You've heard of, oh, plants don't survive very well in turbulent households, for example, where there's a lot of chaos and anger and all of that. Dr. Emoto's work
Right.
is proof of that, is kind of like a visual of the energy of the molecular structure. And so that matters. And a lot of people don't really understand that. Most people don't get that, you know? And so it matters. Like, think about tomatoes. I like to compare it to tomatoes. Our family is an agriculture family. And so when you find a beautiful round tomato on the in the grocery store, and then you cut into it and you taste it, and it's like, ooh, kind of disappointing often. But then when you go to the out your back door into your garden and you pluck this perfectly ripened red tomato and you eat it, and the taste is profoundly different.
Mhm.
And essential oils can be similar. You know, it can look like smell like the same oil, but it lacks the energetic integrity. It's kind of like um, when you when you harvest a tomato when it's green, spray it with CO2 or whatever they spray it with, and then so that it'll stay looking nice on the outside and maybe more shelf life or whatever,
Mhm.
compared to growing a tomato in clean soil right outside your door.
Yeah, that's amazing. I wanted to talk about the mindset portion of
Mhm.
oils because when you're laying on the couch in your drug-induced coma, so let's talk about how your mindset shifted and then how oils can be effective in helping us with a mindset shift.
That is such a great question, and it's so important. So, essential oils amplify intention, and it has to do with a very complicated explanation that we don't have time for in this scope of our conversation here. But it has to do with the molecular structure of authentic essential oils, but they amplify our intention. And so there is one of my favorite blends that I use almost every day is called Gratitude. And it's a blend of number of different oils that have the same electromagnetic frequency of the emotion of gratitude.
Oh my.
So, what does that mean? Well, everything that's living has a vibration, and we call that electromagnetic frequency. And so, essential oils that haven't been, contaminated, they're very high frequency,
Mhm.
and we like draw them out of the plant material and maintain that high vibrational frequency. And then when we take it into our bodies, either topically or inhalation, and in some cases internally, like in our beverages or in water, that kind of thing. Lots of ways that we can bring them into our bodies safely. then that actually has an impact on our thoughts, our own frequency. And you can tell when someone is high frequency. Is you walk into a room and they just glow. They're joyful. Those are high vibrational energies or emotions.
Mhm.
And essential oils really can support that.
That that is so amazing because in this day and age, we are bombarded in every direction and with all of our senses. And it's good to know. I know lavender is wonderful to for calming, and
Oh,
I've used
yes.
it many times. Of course, I did find out after, I mean, my kitty passed not long ago, but
Hmm.
and lavender never seemed to bother him, but I did find out that some are not good to have around pets. And so audience, if you're going to get into this, you need to look into which ones are not safe for animals. But speaking of animals, I'm sure that your company has some that work beautiful for healing our pets or helping our pets, don't they?
Absolutely. And I've done a lot of study with animals, and the raindrop technique can be done safely on dogs and horses and all kinds. So I teach those kinds of workshops as well. And it's really beautiful. And yeah, essential oils are, yeah. So I guess to answer your question about my company is Young Living Essential Oils. That's the company that I'm aligned with and I work through. And their oils, we have a line called Animal Sense. And yeah, and and that whole line of various products um, really is appropriate for animals. And I use a lot of different oils on animals safely and responsibly. It's just beautiful.
That is great. That's It's so amazing because I've learned lately so much more about energy and how everything is energy. And if you put us under a microscope, we would just be lots of vacant space. and and using something like essential oils and your story of recovering utilizing essential oils. I don't know if you're going to write a book or if you have, but there's a lot to talk about in there because when you're hurting, and I've dealt with that, you do just about anything. And to stop and consider that there are alternatives is vital. It's very vital because I've seen so many people go down the rabbit hole of, you know, Western medicine, and then they don't even know about or let alone consider alternatives like oils. And it sounds simplistic. It sounds simplistic, but it's not. Um, so let's talk about how you help educate people, and they might be against that hurdle of, mm, how can this possibly work? They're taking oxycodone or whatever, and how do you help them understand, not convince them, because we all know that, hitting people with between the eyes never works.
Janice, what a great question. First of all, kudos to you because this is how awareness is built. And you're interviewing all different experts in different fields and you're helping to create awareness. And so thank you for that. There's a lot of misinformation, as we all know,
Hmm.
out in the marketplace and in the internet and all of that. So I love to educate through experience.
Hmm.
So I would say that experiential knowledge is very powerful, as we know. So, for example, if somebody said, "Ooh, I've really hurt my shoulder," I would say, "Well, give it a number from 0 to 10." And they might say, "Oh, that's like an 8." And then I'll ask them, "Are you open to trying some oil, some essential oil?" I would do anything. So I would then invite them to apply some essential oil onto their shoulder. I would show them how, and they just put it on. Maybe we'll breathe it in to open the body up to that receptivity. And then in usually 3 or 4 minutes, I'll check back in and I'll say, so tell me what are you noticing with your shoulder? And they sometimes it's like, whoa, like it feels so much better. Give it a number, and they'll often the number is greatly reduced. Now, every body is different.
Mhm.
And what I'd like to also kind of pre-qualify is I am not here as a medical person. I'm here as an educator. So I don't know what else is going on in a person's experience, what meds they're on, whatever is going on. So it's really a personal responsibility, you know? Go through your doctor if you're not sure, if you're doing other things. But to answer your question, I think experience is the best teacher. I didn't coin that phrase, obviously. And especially with essential oils. And it really helps when, whoa, that made a difference for me. I was not a believer. I was very resistant. I just thought it was a bunch of marketing fluff until I experienced it for myself. And now I educate that way.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because I've seen firsthand how one drug leads to another, to another, and to
Mhm.
another. And we've been, for lack of a better word, brainwashed. I haven't. Matter of fact, I haven't had any pharmaceuticals in me for 6 years, and there wasn't much then.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, I am totally resistant to all that stuff,
Hmm.
and find any way to heal except for Western medicine. It has its place, so if somebody's broken a bone, you can still use essential oils while you're healing. And and there's a
It's funny
lot.
you say that.
Oh, really?
Well, one of the most profound stories to me, even beyond my back healing situation, I broke my arm a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago now. And they gave me a Vicodin prescription, which I filled because I didn't know if I would need it. But I did not even use a Tylenol or an aspirin or anything. I used essential oils to reduce the inflammation and manage the pain. It is like, even now, I'm kind of like, whoa, that's kind of amazing. And yet, that was my story.
Yeah, that is amazing. Now, is it safe for people with, or is it safe for kids?
Yes, I've used essential oils, highly diluted, small amounts in certain parts of the body on newborn babies. My
Oh,
own grandson, you know? Uh, yeah, it's safe if you have a little bit of education and a little bit of common sense and know the source. You're not going to want to put poor quality essential oils on a child or on anybody, in fact. So just like don't, you know?
yeah.
Um, so.
Yeah, and I know that you bump up to a lot of objections as we do in our businesses. What is the most common objection that you have experienced and heard?
You know, the best answer to that question is people say, oh, you're just a snake oil salesman. You've heard that, right?
My goodness.
And, you know, there's a story that, you know, rumors don't start themselves. There's a legend that was based on truth. All right, so snake oil is really Melaleuca alternifolia, all right, tea tree. That is what snake oil is. And back in the days of the pioneers, I don't know all the details, but these Australian merchants had melaleuca, this oil, this snake oil, and they were selling it. You know, you picture going across the plains and selling these merchants. And you know, rattlesnake bites, and they would use this oil, and the person, it's an anti venom.
Mhm. Oh,
Um, yes. However, what happened, and this is what happens even today, is those merchants of snake oil got greedy and began to dilute it and stretch it to make more money. And pretty soon the oil didn't work. And
oh.
they got that name, snake oil salesman. So
Hmm.
remind me your question again, because I'm on a tangent.
No, 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 no. That was it. Your major, your the most common
Oh,
objection.
yeah. I well, I don't know that it's going to work. Well, it depends. A lot of people have gone to the grocery store or the gas station and bought a bottle of oil that says 100% pure, and they've used it and it doesn't work because the labeling laws in our country allow you to say 100% pure on the label if there's as little as 5% of the pure substance. It's a
Oh,
big scammy kind of thing, really. It's very deceptive.
oh,
And so people don't believe it anymore,
yeah,
you know? And like snake oil salesmen, that story sort of illustrates
yeah,
what's one of the things that's wrong is people are like very resistant because they've abdicated control to doctors. Until one of the blessings, in my opinion, of COVID is that we've begun to question the authority under which we live, right?
yep,
So, because people with lots of names, lots of letters after their name are on one side of the subject that say, oh no, you got to use vaccines and this and that. The other side, people with lots of letters after their name say, no, 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 it's all dangerous. And so, who do you believe? Well,
yeah,
people now are starting to do their own research, having their own experience to make their own choices instead of abdicating the health and safety of their lives and their families' lives to people with letters after their name, so called experts, because now you don't know who to trust. You
right.
see?
Oh, I know, absolutely. It's it's another type of pandemic. A lack of I think it's a lack of common sense pandemic. But
There you go. That makes
now
sense.
before we wrap it up, just so our audience knows, all of your information, whatever you want to share, will be at the end of the broadcast, and our folks will be able to contact you to get more education and get oils. But as she said, education is paramount because ignorance, it'll cost you. Believe me, it'll cost you. And so, Cindy, I'd like you to, before we wrap it up, leave with any parting words, any thoughts, anything you want to share to wrap it up. Take your time too.
Thank you, Janice, and thank you for like making this possible to
Hmm.
communicate about something that really matters, our health and natural ways to support it. So I would invite people to reach out, even if you have a ton of essential oils, but you don't know how to use them.
Hmm.
See, that was my story. I bought oils, but I didn't have anybody to educate me. And so they sat on a shelf. And those are the most expensive oils ever because it's money in a bottle on a shelf. It might be good oil, but if you're not using it. So if you want to just have a conversation, I will do, a 15-minute consult without charge just to answer questions. And so reach out. Text is the best way to reach me. And yeah,
And we'll have that number and everything else that you want to share with our audience. So, audience, don't hesitate. Reach
yeah,
out. Whatever the issue is, I know she's got a solution, and I know she's done this for what, 20 years, you said? Yep.
20 years. Yeah.
Yep, that's why she's an educator. So in a time when we can misread things online and we can be misled, reach out to someone who's experienced it, who's lived it, who's walking the walk. And she walks the walk. She doesn't just talk the talk. And thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. This has just been wonderful and enlightening. And I hope our audience runs to your website and cell phone number and text you.
Well, thank you, Janice, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share.
Absolutely. This has been great. And thank you to our audience, all of our Courage, Confidence, and Connections podcast listeners. We will see you next time and reach out to either one of us.